Welcome to Your Business, Your Life with Matt DiFrancesco, your personal financial technician. Whether you've had years of success in your business or just starting out, Highlift Financial can help you create a vision for your business, life, and family, and align these for generational wealth. So as they say, what happens in your life affects your business. And now, on to the show. Well, hello and welcome to Your Business, Your Life with me, Matt DiFrancesco. And I'll tell you what, as I travel through the collision industry, it's remarkable to me how many people are really just passionate about this industry and really they see the problems within it, but they want to create solutions and help shop owners to find solutions. And so that's why, I am just jacked to have my guest on today. It's Mike Anderson. And, if anybody's been within the industry, they know who Mike is. He's a champion of everything within the business. I got to meet him at the Southeast Collision Conference down in Richburg, South Carolina last month. And was fascinated. They actually had about a 2-hour session with him and then said, look, Mike, we need to have to do a third session because he had so much great material. So I'm really excited to have him. So Mike's a former shop owner, multiple collision centers, and has won numerous awards in those areas. And so he started Collision Advice, which is basically and I'll let Mike maybe explain this a little deeper, but basically offers all kinds of consulting and coaching to shop owners to help them to progress into the next level. So he speaks with passion and has firsthand experience. And I just think that, everything Mike brings to the table is pure gold. So, shop owners, you need to be listening to this. And if you're somebody in some other type of business, I think you can glean a lot of insights into what that Mike's going to bring to the table here. So with Mike, I just want to welcome you to Your Business, Your Life.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor and a privilege here. And again, just thank you so much for the opportunity.
Oh, you're welcome. And like I said, I'm excited to have you because, you just kind of blew me away with your talk at the Southeast Conference. But before we get started, I mentioned in your bio, you owned multiple shops and then you came to start Collision Advice. So tell us a little bit how that evolved.
Okay, so, I grew up in the industry. My dad was an auto body technician. So I grew up every summer, working with my dad, emptying trash cans and washing cars. And he worked at a dealership body shop. And when I graduated high school, I went in the military and I got out of the military and I came back to work with my dad. And I was going to college part-time because I wanted to go back in the military as an officer. And my dad and I worked at a dealership body shop. And the opportunity presented itself where my dad and I could actually buy the body shop that was owned by the dealership. So my dad and I went ahead and we bought the shop. So I didn't go back in the military. Our shop was in Alexandria, Virginia, right outside of Washington, D.C. Right. We were the second all aluminum Audi certified shop in North America. We were Porsche certified, had a lot of OEM certifications. And then in 2000, I actually bought my dad out. Mm-hmm. And then in 2002, I opened up a second location. In 2005, a third location, and grew our business. And when I owned my shops, I actually belonged to a 20 group. And a 20 group is where people that are not competitors get together on a quarterly basis and compare financials and benchmark, et cetera. And I was in the Coyote Vision group by a wonderful lady by the name of Elena Satchery. And we always were a very high performing shop. And so Elena asked me when we were on the 20 group as a shop owner, would I maybe do like an estimating seminar? And I did it. People found value in it. Mm-hmm. And next thing you know, my shops are running really, really well. And I had great staff that could keep things going. And it actually freed me up where I could go out and start doing consulting and actually started doing 20 groups myself and estimate training, et cetera. And so in 2010, I had a dealership group approach me that wanted to buy my shops. And I was very successful. We were making good money. Everything was great. But my passion was people and my passion was just helping people. And so, I was young and I wasn't married, didn't have any kids at the time. So I said, you know what, let me just go ahead and I made a decision to sell. And that was in 2010. Oh. And I started Collision Advice. So Collision Advice today is a full service consulting company. We actually kind of were first known, or at least I was, for estimate training. So our company kind of flourished and we started doing a lot of estimate training. Mm-hmm. So today our company does all of the estimate training for certified Toyota Lexus shops. So to be certified, you have to take the estimate training we provide. Okay. We do the same for Nissan Infiniti, Honda Acura, and Porsche. And there's other OEMs we work with as well. And Collision Advice also does in-shop consulting and financial analysis and things of that nature. And so today, Collision Advice is not just Mike Anderson. It's actually 10 employees, and just really love what we do and love helping shops to improve their processes. And, I know that, right now, a lot of people are talking about staffing challenges. And one of the things that really made our shop, my own shop's unique, was that we brought a lot of workers over on J1 work visas from Europe.
Oh.
So I'm sure that many of the listeners or people, that are watching this webinar today, I'm sure that a lot of them probably had a foreign exchange student at their high school, right? Maybe somebody came to live in America for a year and go to high school, right? Well, yeah. You can do the same thing with workers and adults. So a lot of our staff that we had were foreign exchange workers from like Denmark, Germany, France, England. And obviously you can do J1 work visas with other countries, but because we specialized in European vehicles, that's why we tended to try to bring workers over on J1 work visas. So that was one of the things that made us unique. So again, Collision Advice, full service company. Prior to COVID, I was on the road about 340 days a year. COVID, things just shut down for us. But yet I'm happy to say that in 2022, I'm probably going to break 300 days a year on the road again. So kind of wear that like a badge of honor, but I get the opportunity to meet all the wonderful, as you mentioned, passionate and exciting men and women in our industry. So that's kind of my background.
And that's great. And I think that's what's really neat about it. I've attended a number of these conferences, and finding the shop owners that are there are really open to learning. And I think, again, they understand the changes that the industry is going through, and they want to adapt. It's not just like they want to just shut their doors and walk away. So I think and those are the people we're really trying to address here. And, another facet I think is fascinating is how you bought your parent shop. And we might want to touch on that a little bit, because that's a lot of where my focus is really, having shop owners how do we create the next transition and help to align the family and business for generational wealth? Because many times that the business is the core amount of their wealth. And so how do we transition that either to the next generation, or, if we sell to a third party, whether it's a key guy or an MSO, then utilizing those resources to help benefit the family. So I think that would be fascinating. And there's hundreds of topics we talk about, but the one you just touched on was this idea of the tech shortage. And I think that's a huge one because, for these shops to grow, they need to attract good techs. And you gave some examples, which I thought were really fascinating about, you went around the room and asked shop owners what they were paying, their C-level techs. And it was pretty shocking what that was. And then compared it to other industries. I wanted you to talk a little bit about that, because that to me was something that was very eye-opening.
Yeah. So, every year as I go around the industry and around the country, and I kind of pick a theme every year, right, that I'm going to share with collision repairers. And so my theme for this year, 2022, is grow your team to grow your business and change the way you compete. So the very first tagline, part of my tagline this year, or my theme for 2022, is grow your team, right? The reality is everybody has work right now, right? In the past, MSOs really had a competitive advantage over shops because they were getting all the DRP referrals. But today, everybody has work. I mean, shops are booked up anywhere from 2 weeks to 6 months. But what everybody doesn't have is people. And so today, in the world today, the shop that can get the people, the shop that has the best culture, the shop that can recruit the best of the best, the shop that can onboard people the best, shop that can retain and reward people that are working for them, that are loyal, that's the shop that's just going to dominate in the future. It's all about culture. And again, growing your team. And growing your team is one of two ways. Growing your team is taking your existing team and help them to improve their skill sets so they become more efficient in what they do. So growing your existing team, growing their skill set, right? But the other thing is growing your team is also bringing on new people, right? Bringing new people in the industry and understanding how to set them on a career path, having structured training, et cetera. So the comment that you're referring to is that, quite often when I'm in a seminar, and I give you an example, like Friday and Saturday, I was in North Carolina working and presenting. Monday, I was in Daytona, Florida presenting. And Wednesday, I was in Detroit, Michigan presenting, right? So at the end of the day, one of the things I often do is I walk around the room and the audience, right? Like I had 100 people in a seminar on Wednesday in Detroit. And I say, if I wanted to come work for you as an entry-level person, just washing cars, or I want to learn to do, body or paint work, Like, what would you start me out at? And most shops are like, well, $15 to $16 an hour.
Right.
Occasionally you might get a shop that says $20 an hour. And I'm like, okay, and how many weeks vacation would I get? Well, you'll get 1 week after a year. What's the most vacation I can get working for you? 2 weeks. Okay, well, also tell me this, right? If I come to work for you, how much do you pay on my health insurance? And then some people say like 45% or 50%. And so at the end of the day, what I then do is I share with them an ad that comes from Amazon's website, right? I share them an ad from Dick's Burgers in Seattle, Washington. I share with them an ad from Buc-ee's in Texas or Wawa in Pennsylvania, showing that you can go work at a convenience store and start out at like $20 an hour, right? 100% paid health insurance and anywhere from 3 to 5 weeks vacation. And that's what we're competing with. So I hear often a lot of times people say, we just can't find people. Well, you can't find people. And I mean this in love. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. We can't find people because we're not competitive in our wages and benefits that we offer. One of the things, and this kind of goes back to what you said, like if you look at Amazon's website, it says they actually offer financial consulting for you if you're an employee. They actually offer estate planning if you're an employee. They actually offer all these, paternity and adoption assistance, right? And so I think, and I know a lot of people say, well, I'm a small business, I'm not an Amazon, but there's still professionals like yourself that they can align with to offer those types of things, right? So at the end of the day, the analogy that you were sharing was, I just tell people, and I actually wrote an article for one of the trade publications a few months ago that just said something's got to change. Something has to change in our industry. And I think that we have to offer a more competitive wage, a better benefit package. And more importantly is we also have to have a career path. And we can talk about that in a moment if you'd like.
Right. No, well, definitely. I think that's really important because I think that's where it's interesting. We talk about people want to bash the millennials and the Gen Z. I mean, I've got 4 boys. All right. And going from 32 down to 8 or 19. So I've got that kind of millennial Gen Z, those generations covered. And the thing that I see with them is that a lot of people say, oh, they're lazy. They don't want to work. And that's not true. That's not true, but they want to work differently. And so, I wanted you, because you addressed a little bit about this too out there, just to kind of get your thoughts on, with these younger people, and instead of trying to conform them to what we do you have any thoughts on how we can conform how they do their job for how they like to work?
Absolutely. And I just don't agree with that, everybody says like millennials don't want to work. I just disagree with that.
Right.
I think that times have just changed, right? I mean, I work for my dad, and my dad, unfortunately my dad passed away on May 3rd, but it was funny because at my dad's funeral service, we had about 40 of our former employees showed up. And my dad was a former military person, a disabled vet. And my dad was the kind of guy that, if you didn't wear a belt to work, he'd send you home. I mean, he was strict like that, right? And everybody talked about that, but the other thing too is that, in those days, my dad would say jump, and you'd say how high, how long, and where at. And then everybody says, well, today's people, the younger generation, if you say jump, they say why, right? And so why do you want me to jump? So at the end of the day, there's 2 ways to look at that. You can look at that as this person's questioning me, they're challenging me, they can't take authority, right? Or you can turn that around and say, if I take the time to explain to them why, then maybe they'll start to get creative and maybe come up with some solutions that could help me to benefit my business or become more efficient. So I think that you can view that as a sign of disrespect, right? But I also think it's the way you communicate with people. You can tell them, look, if you're in the middle and a technician's working with you and they're teaching you how to do something, don't question them unless it's a matter of safety or values or ethics. Now, if you have a question as to why you think maybe something's done a certain way, or you think you disagree and you have a better idea, let's talk about that at the end of the day. So maybe it's not that we don't want to be open to them, but maybe we just need to come to a common agreement with them, right? That says, right, there's a time and a place to question me, and I'm okay with you asking me why, but unless it's, something in regards to safety or values, let's have that conversation at the end of the day, and then we'll be glad to talk through it, because then they might have some ideas, right? So I think you can turn that into a positive if as a leader or manager, you're open to having that dialogue, right? Because we're asking them to compromise, but we also have to compromise ourselves.
Right. Yeah, no, I certainly understand that. What would you say? I'm kind of interested in this because again, I was talking to my son was looking for a new job, the 32-year-old, and I was asking, what are you looking for? And he said, he goes, I want something that pays well, but will give me plenty of flexibility. And again, as a baby boomer, I'm kind of going, oh, geez, you're not going to find anything. But then I got thinking about it. And I'm thinking, no, that's just the way they think. It's not that they don't want to work, but they want to get paid a decent, they want to get paid for a decent wage, but also have flexibility and flexibility in the hours that they work.
Right. So
and go ahead.
And I think when you bring that up, shops say they tell themselves a negative story, right? They're like, well, you don't understand. We fix cars. Everybody has to be there during the day. And I don't disagree with that, right?
Right.
But flexibility can be interpreted different ways. Like I'll give you an example. When I had my shops, everybody that worked for me got one Friday off once a month.
Yeah.
So everybody got a 3-day weekend, a chance to recharge their batteries. My shops, we closed at 1:00 every Friday, right? Mm-hmm. So when you think about flexibility, it doesn't mean like, okay, well, I can't just let my body man come in at night and fix a car or show up at 10. That's going to the extreme.
Right.
But we can absolutely offer flexible work schedules, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know about you, but when I was growing up with my mom and dad, if one of my sister or I were sick, my mom was the one that stayed home from work and took care of the kids, not my dad, right? My dad was the breadwinner. But in today's world, you have both spouses are working and the other spouse may be the breadwinner of the family, but maybe they both have careers, right? And so you can't always expect the mom to stay home, right? So there may be a time that your your body tech has to stay home with the kids, right? Because the wife is the breadwinner. The wife also has a career. But what we need to do is we just need to make sure that we offer the husband, well, you know what, maybe you can come in that evening and work. Now, I don't think it's a good idea to have just one tech working by themselves because there's a fire or an emergency, nobody else is there.
Yep.
But maybe you offer that, right? One of the things that I really loved that we did with our business, and I've done with probably 80 shops, 100 shops around the U.S., is implement what's called a team or a cell system, right? There's a great book that I read called Extreme Ownership, right? By a guy named Jocko. Yep. And he talks about the Navy SEALs. Like Navy SEALs don't become Navy SEALs because it pays the most, right? So what do you need to do to offer something where the people that work for you want to have the same mentality as a Navy SEAL, that they want to be paid a fair wage, but there's also that camaraderie where they want to look out for each other and have each other's back. Right. So if somebody does have to work different hours, that whoever's working the opposite hours is looking out for them and contributing. So I think flexible work hours could be, and I know a lot of shops right now that are going to 4-day work weeks. Allow their techs to work 4-day work weeks. I know other shops that are, running almost like 3 different types of 4-day work weeks, right? So maybe somebody works like Monday through Thursday, and then somebody else is working, like Tuesday through Friday, right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, again, I think you have to be creative. And the other thing is, just because you try something doesn't mean it works. It doesn't mean you're stuck with it for the rest of your life, right? You can modify and try things and see what works best for you. So I absolutely agree with that flexible, being flexible with work hours, I get it. Somebody can't fix a car from home, but there's still things we can offer to allow them flexibility. And I don't really think that flexibility is really what it is. What they're really telling us is they want quality of life.
That's it.
They want to be able to get off and coach their little boys' baseball team, or they want to be able to take and not miss their kids growing up or go to school activities. So maybe they got to leave for 3 hours in the middle of the day and go to their kids' school or go visit their mom in a nursing home, right? But then they can make that up sometime else. I think we just have to not be as stringent in that, right?
Right. Oh, exactly. It's interesting you brought that up because I have a client who his 2 boys were in the business. He was looking to try to groom them, and there was a lot of conflict. And a lot of it was, dad started working at a body shop, sweeping floors, and worked his way up, ended up buying the shop, has built it into, he's doing about $4.5 million, but he was a grinder. And so now the one son was married, had kids, and he was kind of like, well, I don't mind hard work, but, I want to go to my kids' ball games. I want to be able to do a lot of these things that dad just didn't do. But it was more of a generational thing. It's not any kind of indictment on his character or anything like that. It was just, like my dad was like that too. He was just, he was working because that's what he was supposed to do. But this generation is looking for that quality of life. And I think that's something that's really important. And shop owners that can recognize that I think will be able to attract and retain a lot of the talent that's out there.
Yeah, the other thing too is I think that people want to feel appreciated, right?
Yeah.
There was a book I read one time called The Five Love Languages by Dr. Chapman.
Yep.
It talks about everybody has a primary or dominant love language, right? Like it's gifts, acts of service, physical touch, quality time, or words of affirmation.
Right.
And then he wrote a book called The Five Languages of Appreciation in the
Mhm.
workplace. And I would encourage everyone, you can actually go online and get a free assessment that your employees can take or your team can take to understand how they feel appreciated, right? I'll give you an example. I had a shop owner of that was one of my clients, and he called me and said, "Hey, one of my technicians is leaving to go work somewhere else because they're going to make more money." And I offered him the same amount of money, and they don't want to stay. And I said, "Well, you know what? I knew the technician." And I said, "I just don't believe that's true." And I called the tech and I talked to him. And the reason he was leaving is because he had the ability to go work at a Mercedes-Benz dealership where he could go to Mercedes-Benz training. And he wasn't leaving for money. He was leaving because he wanted the ability to be able to have the prestige of saying, "I'm a Mercedes-Benz certified tech," right? Yeah. So at the end of the day, I think that I'm not saying there's not people that aren't motivated by money, but I think people also are in different seasons of their life, right? When you're young and you're trying to buy your first car, your first house, you have kids, right? You're trying to get money for college. The money probably is important to you, but then you might have somebody else whose wife is a breadwinner. And so it makes good money as a tech, maybe that wife, right? Or maybe it's an estimator that's a female or a manager that's a female and her husband is a breadwinner, right? Then in that case, maybe it's that they need quality time, which is time off, right? Or flexible work hours. But then maybe you have someone else that what's important to them is, again, just the prestige, right? Of knowing they can say, "Hey, I've gone to this training." And that's, so I think understanding that people are motivated differently. And I would highly recommend everybody reads the book, The Five Languages of Appreciation in the Workplace, because I believe that could absolutely help people to retain more of their current staff.
Right. You know what? It's interesting because kind of a recurring theme in a lot of my podcasts is this idea of personal development, because I harp on my clients. I'm a bit of a personal development junkie. I've been, studying it for 30 years. And so, the book, I've read the books that you're talking about. And the challenge I have is trying to get shop owners to start reading.
Yes.
But when I do, it's amazing the transformation that happens. One of the guys that I'm working with, he's a reader. He made the comment when I first met him. He said, if you took Grant Cardone, Gary Vaynerchuk, Dave Ramsey, and Pat Lencioni, and they had a baby, I'd be the love child, but what he did was he started getting his team they would do the book of the month. They'd all read the same book and get together once a week and discuss what they were learning out of the book. And I think that's really, that's an aspect that readers become leaders.
Yes.
And it's not just about us as owners being the leader, but also teaching our people how to become leaders, to then they can teach the people under them to be leaders. And I think that's how we really develop those strong cultures.
Yeah. And, when I hear you talk about that, you said people want to become leaders, but I think that goes back to that people that were working in a shop or any business, right? Any business, they want the opportunity for career growth, right? And I think you have to provide that to them, right? And that's where I think that if you are in this business, I think you have to think bigger about growing your business. Growing your business means go from, $1 million a year to $3 million a year, or from $3 million a year to a second location, or a second location to a third location. And I think you need to tell your people, look, if I have a young person, I'm training them to be a prepper, and they say, well, your painter's only 32. I'm never going to get a chance to be a painter here, right? Well, you know what? When you learn to become a painter, I'll find another shop and I'll open up another shop so you can be the painter. And I think that, in the Bible, it says, without a vision, the people will perish. I think that we have to make sure that people understand, look, you're not at a dead end here. I will do everything I can to create a career path for you. And I think that's also goes back to why it's important to do employee reviews once a year, is you can understand what your team's aspirations are from a career standpoint, right? I'll give you a very real world example. I was in Daytona, Florida, doing a seminar this past Monday, and I had a gentleman come up to me and he said, he said, Mike, I heard you speak one time, and you said that if I ever felt like I couldn't meet my life-term goals by the current employer I was at, I needed to find another job. And I said, yeah, I did say that. And he said, well, I was working at a job and I told them that I wanted to eventually, he said I was a technician. And he said, I wanted to be an estimator. And the guy told me, well, if I let you be an estimator, then who's going to fix my cars? And he said, so what I did is, he said, I wanted to be an estimator. And the guy just said, hey, if I let you be an estimator, who's going to fix cars? And the guy was focused on his goals, not that employee's goals. And that guy ended up going out and opening up his own shop. Now he's not an estimator, he's an owner. So I think that a lot of times shop owners or business owners in general, not just body shops, right? They penalize people for being too good at their job, that they say, if I give this person an opportunity, who am I going to replace them with? And I think that's where you just have that conversation that says, look, I will allow you to be an estimator manager, but help me to train your replacement, right?
Right.
And I think we can't hold people back because of how good they are.
Isn't that the truth? And, it was interesting. I had a conversation with another guest a little while ago, and we talked about having the right butts in the right seats. And, sometimes we hire somebody, they might have a skill set, but if we never really figured out like what their personality type was. So for example, if somebody's a people person, are they utilizing their skill set and their God-given talents being in a paint booth? Conversely, somebody who's client facing, customer service, an estimator who is more technically driven, are they best doing that or being a technician? And so I think that's interesting, because I think even in that case, him saying that I'd like to be an estimator, I think is an indication that maybe he's not even in the right seat, even though he's good at what he does.
Yeah. I mean, oftentimes we go into a shop to do on-site consulting, or we'll do what's called a shop overhaul to help a shop improve efficiencies. I agree with you. What you do is, what's the saying? You got to get the right people on the bus, the right people off the bus, and the right people in the right seat on the bus. So I agree with that analogy 100%. So generally what I will do is I will survey employees. I'll survey shop employees or staff and ask them, what is your career goals? And are you happy doing what you're doing, or would you rather do something else? But I also think that's where the future model of collision repair is going to change, right? Like before, you had an estimator that kind of did everything cradle to grave. And we added CSRs, where the CSRs would help with the paperwork. Then we added a parts person. And now we see shops that are also separating the estimators, right? You might have an estimator that's awesome with people, but you may have another estimator that's really good at getting every 1/10 on the estimate and every nut, bolt, and clip, but maybe they're not the most personal. So the skill sets are different, right?
Right.
So there's a lot of companies that obviously, they do disc assessments and things like that. So finding a good company, right? Like we use a guy named Norm Bobe from HireMax, where they do assessments. And so if you find somebody is your best estimator or your best CSR or your best body tech that trains other apprentices, get them to do an assessment to find out what are their personality traits, right? It's not a pass or fail test, but understand what their traits are so that you can make smarter hiring decisions and hire someone that kind of mirrors what their traits are as well.
Exactly. And I think, a happy employee, you're much more likely to retain there.
Yeah, correct. And I think they call that ESI, right? Like employee satisfaction index, right? And, your customers are only going to be as happy as your employees are, right?
Yep.
If your employees aren't happy, then it's going to parlay over to your customer experience, right? And then that customer experience is going to parlay over to, online reviews, which is going to, all this, right? I was talking to a gentleman by the name of Nick Schoolcraft from Phoenix Solutions recently, and he shared this term with me called social proof, right?
Yes. Yeah.
That consumers want social proof that, you can be trusted. But now you also see websites, right, where employees of your company or former employees can post reviews about what it's like to work for you, right?
Right.
So again, you need to be making sure that you're treating your employees good. And when I say treat your employees or your team good, it doesn't mean you just let them get away with whatever they want, like on their cell phone all the time or show up to work late. I don't mean that, right? But just, rewarding them for doing a good job. I had the opportunity to work with a shop called Trinity Collision up in Moncton, Canada.
Okay.
And what the owner of the dealership does is if you do a really good job, he doesn't just give you like a cash bonus because you spend the money, you forget about it. What he'll do is like, if you do a really good job and you just do something exceptional. Now the key word here is exceptional, right?
Right.
What he'll do is like, he'll pay somebody to like clean your house for a week. Every week.
Oh,
for
wow.
a month.
Interesting.
We'll pay somebody to clean your house every week for a month. So think about the next time that body tech has to call his wife and say, hey, I got to stay late tonight. His wife, like, I don't care. Just see if you can do something to get him to clean our house again. Right.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
The things that you get people talking about and they get excited about it. They don't forget. And again, I'm not saying we shouldn't reward people with like cash bonuses or bonus that's, incentivized financially. But when you can do something like that, because everybody's busy, they don't have time to clean their house, wash their clothes, and you get somebody to do that. Now, all of a sudden, it leaves a lasting impression, and then they want to tell all their friends about what their boss did for them, right? So I think we have to think outside the box for the way that we reward people.
Yeah. And it's fascinating. You just gave me a nugget because, one of the things that I do, and you touched on this about, raising business value. And a lot of times, as I'm going in and working with these shop owners and their families, and we're discussing their goals and what they want to accomplish. And, usually usually, if I'm asking, okay, so how much income do you need for the next phase of your life? And it's always the same amount that they're making now. But then, so we'll look at doing a business valuation and then what do they have in other assets? And 9 times out of 10, the business they think it's valued here. It's really valued here. And then we forget about taxes and personal expenses and all these things. And so there's this gap. So the initial part of the plan may be we need to raise the value of the business. But one of those areas is with looking to retain key employees, because we talk about transitioning the business, but what most shop owners they don't even want to think about is what happens if they become disabled or they die tragically, and how does the business continue and how do they provide for their family? So we'll do things like stay bonuses where we'll base it on performance, and key employees will get to participate in that and put vesting schedules on. But I like the idea to give them something else that's not necessarily money-based or that they feel like they're always locked in, like cleaning the house, those type of things. I think that's a fascinating idea.
Something that's going to be memorable, right?
Yeah.
Memorable. Like if I ask like, hey, what did you do with your paycheck 6 months ago? What'd you buy? Nobody's going to remember. But if I say, hey, like, what's your best Christmas gift you ever got? And they say it was the year I got, a mini bike, right? Then that's memorable, right? And I think that's what we need to do is we need to figure out how do we reward people or create an experience in the workplace that's memorable in a positive way, right?
Right.
So that if they ever do leave you as well and they're working somewhere else, that memory keeps creeping back that says, man, I miss when we used to do this, when the boss used to make us lunch every Friday or whatever that case may be. Or I used to miss the coming Christmas party we had, or I used to miss, like with my shops, I used to close my business down on a Friday every quarter.
Right.
Every January, we close down on a Friday, and I would actually have my health insurance company come in, and I would invite all my employees' spouses, and I would just say, hey, let's talk about health insurance so the spouse can understand our coverage, et cetera, right?
Right.
And, the second quarter of every year, I would bring in someone such as yourself who managed our 401k, and I would have them just talk to all my employees. I closed my entire shop down on a Friday, and that person that managed our 401k would come in and talk about, the trends and economics and help them understand that. And then, I would also allow my financial advisor for my company for their 401k to come in once a quarter and just meet with my employees for an hour to 90 minutes just to review where they were at. Yep. So, again, ongoing. And then once a year, I would close my entire shop down and I would take all my employees and their families if they wanted to go and all their kids to King's Dominion, a local amusement park.
Right.
So I would try to do things again to create memories.
Yeah. Memories are those are the things that we carry with us. I mean, it's like you said, money is kind of fleeting. Like if you give somebody a cash bonus, it's usually gone. They blow it on something, right. And then, even if you're just put like a stay bonus or something where it's down the road, it's not something that, they're always looking at it, something that's down the road that they'll get, but they don't have it right now. But having those memories are the really important things. And I think even as families, we look at those things. I mean, you just said you lost your dad in May, and my condolences to that. I lost mine in last August, and it's funny. It's not the money, but it's the little memories. And it's not even sometimes the big memories, like the vacation that we took, but it's just those times when maybe you were just sitting in the living room having a conversation. Yes. And those are the most important things.
Absolutely agree. Totally agree.
Yeah. So, but and Mike, I was watching my watch here. We could just kind of keep going, but I do, in the interest to keep listeners listening, I want to try to keep this at that 30-minute mark. So any closing thoughts that you might want to leave with the audience?
No, I just think that I don't think the industry is doom and gloom. I think the industry is a very exciting time right now. I think all the trends that are coming down the futures, where it's electric vehicles or OEM certifications, I just believe that the industry is a really exciting time right now. And I think shops need to make sure they surround themselves with positive people and surround themselves with people that will call them out on bad ideas, right? Like, and Patrick Lencioni, if you read his book, The 5 Temptations.
Oh, yeah.
He says you want people that will challenge your way of thinking. And so, just continue to do that. It's an exciting industry. I appreciate the opportunity to be on your session here, and kudos to you for what you're doing. And I appreciate you so much. Thank you.
Oh, no problem. No problem. It's actually interesting because that's one thing I offer to all of my clients. And I only have about half of them to take me up on it is doing, employee education. I say, this is part of your fee. I mean, I build this in, but yeah, it's amazing to me how only about a half of them actually take advantage of it. So I appreciate the shout out there. So
If I can help you, or if I can support, assist, or encourage yourself or anybody that's watching this, please feel free to let me know. And again, we're just grateful for the opportunity, and
cool.
just God bless to everyone.
No problem. No problem. Yeah. So thank you. Hopefully sometime we can coordinate our schedules and maybe have you back on. We can get into some more depth on all this stuff because I know you're a wealth of knowledge here. So I really appreciate you being on. And the last thanks always goes out to you, the listener. Thank you for listening to Your Business, Your Life with me, Matt DiFrancesco. And if you've not subscribed to this podcast, please click the subscribe button below. That way, when a new episode comes out, it'll download directly to your device and you can very easily share it with your friends and family and your peers and anybody you think might get value, especially from what Mike's presented to us today. And so if you're watching on YouTube, please give us a good review, even on the podcast channels, whether you're listening on iTunes, on Google Play, whatever it may be. If you like what you're hearing and want to hear more, give us a 5-star review. That way we move up on the chart. So again, I want to thank Mike for being on Your Business, Your Life. I want to thank you, the listening audience. And until next time, take care and have a great day. God bless. Hey, I really want to thank you for listening to the Your Business, Your Life podcast. If you want to be notified when new episodes become available, click the subscribe button below.
The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of High Lift Financial. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investment, legal, or tax advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified professional with any questions you may have regarding your business or personal planning. DiFrancesco Financial Concierge, LLC, DBA High Lift Financial, is a registered investment advisor. Registration with the United States Securities and Exchange Commission or any state security authority does not imply a certain level of skill or training.